Kingdom marriage, sudden graduation. Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. I've been trying to record this video since yesterday. So, yeah, I hope to win today. I know that this will be a blessing to someone. Before getting on the dream, please understand that I'm in South Africa, so that's where you find your whites, blacks, Indian, Chinese, etc. So sometimes my dreams may focus on a particular ethnic group of people, but that does not necessarily mean that the dream is pertaining to that ethnic group only. And that's the case in this dream, but I will explain, I will elaborate, further, in the interpretation of the dream what it means. So I dreamt that I was walking into a hall, into an auditorium. The doors were already open. It was quiet. I initially thought that there was no one there. And then I heard Kingdom Spouse. I made a mental note of it. I was not aware that I was dreaming. I made a note of it, assuming that the Lord will add on to it throughout the day. So I walked into the auditorium and I found people seated. They were seated quietly. And then the next thing, I see myself seated at the front. It was already full at the back, you know. And then because I was seated at the front, I wanted to see behind me what was happening behind me. So as I looked back, I had an eagle's view. So I immediately began to scan the room. So as I scanned the room, I noticed that first of all, let me describe the room as I was scanning the room. Where I was seated, it was flat like this, but where the other people, most people were seated. They were seated in those seats like this. So the people at the back were at the top, that kind of auditorium setting. So I could see everybody clearly. So I would zoom in and out of people's faces even. So yeah, and the back was already full or almost full. And it was the front where not so many people were seated. Many people opted for those seats at the back. So I noticed that the majority of the people there were Chinese. Okay. And when I say a majority, I mean like 95% of the people there were Chinese. And I also noticed some Afro Chinese, and there were also other races there. So this could mean something to someone. So I'd like to make a reference of some people who stood out. This can mean something to someone. I noticed, like I said, there was the majority of the people were Chinese, and I noticed a few Afro Chinese. I noticed one white gentleman. He was petite and he was dressed in a very stylish way. Like you can see that this guy is a fashionista. Okay. And then I also noticed two Indian ladies. One was slim, one was chubby, a bit chubby. They were either sisters or friends because they looked close. So those are the characters that stood out for me among other people. Okay. So as I was busy scouting at the people, I realized also that the people were dressed in semi-formal and formal clothes. And people were just quiet. I think there was a curiosity perhaps, but I only understand that now that I'm out of the dream, that the reason people were quiet, there was a curiosity. People are asking themselves questions. You'll also understand at the end of the dream. So we were all seated there quietly. And then we heard on the speakers above us in the intercom, it was announced, but it was spoken in Chinese. No, I do not speak Chinese. But in the dream, it was spoken in Chinese. Someone spoke in Chinese something. And when they were done speaking, the people lost it. The people jumped into the air. The people were just jumping up and down, hugging each other. I could say 80% of the people were crying, including the men. I remember this other lady, she was crying in her hands. She was crying like this. You know, the emotions that I saw, like I was like, oh my gosh, I was trying to study the situation myself, and I'm like, so these people, they didn't know that they were graduating. They didn't know that they were graduating. And the way they jumped up and down, I was like, how hard this course must have been. Like how hard and challenging, this course must have been for them. And as I looked at them, there was a knowing, there was an understanding that these people were teachers. I remember looking at them, thinking to myself, oh, wow, so these are our future leaders. They have graduated. That's what was happening in my mind as I was looking at them. And I remember how overwhelmed they were with emotions. Like guys, they were crying. Like it took some like a while for them to like calm down and like sit. And as I was studying the different emotions of the people, I was then drawn to these two Indian ladies that I said stood out for me. But their reaction was quite different from everybody else's. Now, the slim lady was just smiling, looking in front of me. And then this chubby lady was like, you know, and I'm looking at them like thinking like, what's happening? So naturally, I looked in front of me. And then it was then the first time that I noticed that in front of me, there was a lady. Now, she was sitting wrong. We're all supposed to sit like this, but she was sitting this way. You know, she was just reclining on the chair, basically. So I could see the side of her. That's how she was reclining, you know. And then just on the next aisle, okay, or no, or rather on the next row of seats, there was a guy. But this guy was also reclining the same way as this lady was reclining, but he was reclining even lower than her. So you would never have picked it up if you didn't, yeah, so it was possible for you not to have seen him. And then, not too far from this guy, there was a little girl. And in this dream, I just knew that this girl was 7 years old. Don't ask, I just knew. Okay, yeah. The same way as I knew what they said when they spoke in Chinese, okay, the same way as I knew that these people had graduated and they were our future teachers, the same way as I knew that. So now I want to see, like, I turned to look around to see what is happening. So as I was studying these people, I noticed that this guy, his eyes were focused on this lady, and she was just lost in her thoughts. She didn't even see him. She didn't even pick up on anything. She was pretty much lost in her thoughts, you know. But like, you should have seen the guy's face. Like, he was looking at her so lovingly with adoration and admiration. Like, on his face was just written, I'm in love. It was like everybody in the room was invisible. Like, he couldn't see any of us. And as he was looking at the lady somehow just turned and she realized that some of us were looking at her. It was then that she looked on her right. Then she saw the guy and she got a fright. She almost jumped off her seat. She was first shocked that this guy was there. This meant that she knew the guy. The way she reacted, she knew the guy. But she was shocked to also see him there, like the shock, you know. And then she was just again lost in her thoughts. And she was still in that reclining position, you know. And as she's seated there, I noticed that this guy, the entire time, he had been trying to reach out like this. But the way what he was doing is that he was reaching out like this. This is what the guy was doing. But in the dream, I understood that he wanted to comfort her. You know how you would comfort a baby, how you would pat a baby? That's what he was doing. But he was doing this, and she was far, and he couldn't reach her. But he kept on doing this. He kept on doing this. Looking at it, it was just so sweet. It was just so sweet. You know. And then my eyes were drawn to this little girl. This little girl was holding um lace, just holding lace. This is a kind of material you would use for a wedding dress. So this girl was holding a lace material. So she took this lace material and began to put it over the woman like a blanket. And her little hands was not, she had these little hands and she was not really doing a good job of it. So it was then that the guy actually set up, and then he helped the little girl to put the lace covering over the woman, over this lady. She was still reclining. Okay. She was still again lost in her thoughts. Okay. I think she was in disbelief, you know, and then they were slowly putting the lace covering over her as a blanket. And when they were done, both the man and the 7-year-old girl, they started to pat on her like this. You know, the way you would pat a baby, the way you would comfort a baby, like it was so sweet. Like it was like, yeah, it was so sweet. Like it's not a normal behavior, you know. So all of us were just looking at them like, wow, yeah. So yeah, that's the dream. I like to get in on the interpretation. I wrote the notes so I don't leave out anything. So the interpretation of the dream. In the dream, when I woke up, the first thing was like, why Chinese people? Like Chinese people of all people, why the Chinese people? But then I was thinking, but this just sounds like boot camp, you know. When I think of Chinese people, I think discipline. These people are very disciplined, you know. And understanding what was happening, now that I was awake, I understood that these people, the graduates that I was looking at, had been through the most. They had been through the most vigorous training where they were challenged mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally challenged. These people have been through an emotional roller coaster. These people have been through the most. And that explained why, when it was said that they had graduated, that they were so overwhelmed with emotions. These people had been through the most. And they cried, like you could see, like this had really dragged on longer than they would have loved it to have dragged on. And another thing, these people were not aware that their course has finally ended, that this was it, they were done, they were graduates now. To them, they thought that there was still more time. They thought that to still had to put in more work. They still had to put in more time. So for someone to say, okay, guys, this is it, you're done, like the joy, like their joy, you know, it was, yeah, you could see it in their faces, like they were happy and they were crying. Another thing that I noticed in the dream is that there were mostly women. Yes, in this stand and in this journey of kingdom marriage, a lot of women are actually standing, meaning that there's actually more prodigal men than there are prodigal women. And that's true. Okay. And let's leave the ethnic group out of it. I've explained that I believe that the Chinese people were there to show how vigorous and how trying the journey has been. Okay. And any other further revelation that I will get after this, I do not mind, you know, making another video to clarify further. Another thing, the two Indian ladies and myself who were looking at the men, admiring, like looking at the couple rather, but we were looking at the men really, like we were just moved at the kind of love that this man had for this woman. Like this was just pure love, like it was just pure, it was genuine, it was real. You know, there are different kinds of people, different kinds of couples, and they stand out differently. But there are those couples whom you can look at and be like, you know, tomorrow when I get married, this is the kind of marriage I would like to have. Tomorrow when I have a partner, this is the kind of partner I would like to have. So they had that thing, but that kind of love, like it was a kind of love that we felt like, if I had a man, this is the kind of love I would want my man to love me with. This is the kind of way I would love my person to look at me. This is the kind of eyes, the kind of love, admiration that I would love for him, you know, to have for me. Like it was that kind of love. It was enviable. Like it it caused us to look, you know, it attracted that attention from onlookers because they could see that whatever love is, this is beautiful, this is different, this is unique, this is real, and this is genuine. Okay. Another thing, let us speak about the spouse when he was reaching out. Now this man, he was reclining. This man was reclining, but as he was reclining, he was reaching out to her like this, like wanting to pet her, wanting to comfort her. But this shows that this man's prayers were going on her behalf. This man's heart was for this woman. This man was wishing her well. Although she didn't see it, although she did not perceive it, but he was always there. He had full view of her, and his eyes have been on her this whole time. And another thing, he had been in close proximity of her. And perhaps in her mind, she was like, well, does he even think about me? You know, does he even miss me, let alone love me? Do I mean anything to this person? But this is the same man who had been looking at her, with such admiration. Like, you should have seen this guy's face. When people are in love, you see it in their eyes. You should have seen the eyes of this man. Like, yeah. So he had that much love for her, and you could see it in his eyes. So the graduates were graduating as teachers. So for me, I feel that having graduated as teachers, and I was looking at them and I was like, oh wow, these are the future leaders. These are the future teachers. Meaning there was a new day ahead of them. They were starting a new chapter. They were beginning their careers. So this was something beautiful. This was an important and first step of their lives. So I feel that means that the stand for kingdom marriage had finally come to an end. The Lord was like, okay, this is it. Now this had been like an abrupt end. So there was like no notice, nothing. These people are just called to an auditorium. They're just sitting there, and then they're told, class of 2024, these are our graduates. And they just lost it because they were not expecting it. So even for you, don't expect some notice or something. If you wanted a notice, baby, this is it. I'm telling you now that is going to be an abrupt thing. If you needed a notice beforehand, this is beforehand, because after this, it will be abrupt. It will take you by surprise, but you'll be shocked in a beautiful way, hey? So they were graduating as teachers. I also understand that graduating as teachers means that these people have been through training, so they were equipped and they were ready, they were trained to teach, to encourage, and to help others who are also in this journey, because they've been through the journey and they lived through it. So they were pretty much qualified to teach and to encourage others concerning the journey because they've been through it. Let's speak about the child. This girl child. First of all, is a girl child. When you think of a girl child, you think of sweetness. When you think of a child, you think of innocence, you think of purity. When you think of a girl child, they are sweet. You know, they want to give you gifts. They want to make you gifts. They want hugs. They want kisses. That's usually what girl kids are. Okay. So that's what the girl child represents. But also remember that this child was 7 years old. The Bible says that the Lord created everything, and on the seventh day he rested. So seven represents completion, it represents perfection. Not to say that you or your partner are perfect, that's not what I'm saying. But it's saying what you needed to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. You have done that, and you have graduated. And that was like quick like that. Okay. And another thing, when this girl was pulling on the lace and putting the lace thingy over the woman, it was significant that it was just not the man who was pulling it on her, it was the girl as well. So this woman, and the lace was white. So this woman was clothed in purity. This is the woman that had walked her purity walk before the Lord. She was clothed in the white lace, representing the bride of Christ. A wife. The Bible speaks about his bride, being clean, free of wrinkles. free of stains, you know, free of spots, and wrinkles, as the Bible says. But also, now that it was the girl child who was also helping to put this lace over her, and she's 7 years old, it also represented the fullness of time that the woman has had to wait, or that the couple has had to wait to the fulfillment of their wedding promise, to the fulfillment of their marriage promise, rather. So the time had come to fulfillment, to completion, to perfection. It was time for them to walk into their marriage. It was time for the wedding. For some, it means it's time for courtship. For some, it's time for friendship, building a friendship. Okay? And for some, it's time for them to meet their spouse. Remember, everybody's story is different, everybody's journey is different. Yeah, so when the man was helping the little girl to put the lace over the woman, this man was taking initiative. This man had made a decision that, yes, I will be the man that will fight for her honor. By him putting the lace over this woman, he was saying, yes, I agree, and I take on that responsibility to be a covering over her. The Bible says that the man is the head of the wife, he's the head of the household. So a man as a covering, he has that spiritual authority, and that is a spiritual law. And his prayers, and his prayers, and a husband's prayers, a father's prayers are strong, they are powerful, because of the spiritual position in which he holds. Okay, that is a spiritual truth, and I'm not even going to debate on that. I'm not even going to go on that. So this man was saying, I will be the covering over this woman. I'll be the covering over her. I'll be that man to protect, to provide. I'll be that man for her. That's what it means. And another thing, him just touching that lace over her, this man it was with gentleness, and it was just gentlemanly, such a gentlemanly thing, a gentleman thing to do for her. So this shows that this man was respectful of her purity. He was respectful of her journey before God, and he was honoring that. Okay, so he was honoring her purity. He was acknowledging it even. Now, let's speak about the woman reclining. First of all, this woman was sitting wrong. I know I was seated wrong too, because I was looking behind me, but I was scouting the room. Like I was trying to understand what was happening. It was like all of us didn't know what was happening, because even me, I was looking, I was scouting. That is why I was even surprised to see the people that were there. Like even me, I was just scouting, okay? So I was just looking to understand like what's happening here. But she was different. This woman was reclining. She was almost unbothered, nonchalant, and so lost in her thoughts. This woman has been in this journey for so long that she somehow almost became numb. Now, this woman had been through the most. This is probably the woman who had done the most. She had done a lot, perhaps to even try to help the Lord, to try and get this thing going, to try and get the wedding thing going, the marriage thing going. And she just realized that, you know what, I'm done. This is the woman that had come to the end of herself and had been through an emotional roller coaster. She had probably been through different situations where she probably was like, Lord, um, I've been in this journey for so long. I do not know if I even still want this. I don't know if I still want this kingdom marriage thing. She was almost detached, because when everybody was jumping up and down, the emotions that I saw, she was just reclined. And the guy was just looking at her, loving her. And with that understanding, with that understanding. And her reclining just showed that she was just exhausted. Mentally, physically, spiritually, she's been through it all. She probably had fasted for the man. She probably had prayed hard for the man, to the point where she was like, Lord, whatever, She probably prayed for the man, stopped praying for the man, then went back to praying for the man, fasted for the man, stopped fasting for the man, and went back to fasting for the man. Guys, if you're listening, just switch the situation around to suit you, okay? So she has been through it all. She's also been through um instances where she was like, Lord, but if this person doesn't want me, then I don't want them either. It's not like I don't have other options. It's not like there's no other people. But she stood firm. She stood still because she honored God. She honored God first. It is God she's honoring. In this journey, you better love God. In this journey, it is your love of God that helps you to stand. It is your love of God, not the love of your spouse. It is the love of God first that helps you to stand because you are in God's will. And I feel that's a good what? It's a good fundamental principle in keeping the marriage together. In starting and in keeping the marriage together, because the honor is first to God. Because even in our walk with God, we live to please God first. And we're not living right because we have a spouse or a partner, but it's because we know that we have God who's watching us, who sees everything. So our honor is first to God. You know, it's first to God. And as we honor God, automatically and naturally, we're honoring our partners, our husbands. Okay. So this woman was just exhausted. Yeah, she's been through the most. She's like, Lord, like, I don't know if I still want this. She was like, Lord, I don't know if I'm supposed to go through this. Like, Lord, if this person don't want to be committed to this, why are you forcing this person? And there are times where she probably took things too personal. We need to understand that, as much as marriage is important, but when it comes to our assignment, to our calling, to our purpose, to the reason we are born, it first starts with us. You are born alone, and when you leave, you will leave alone. When we are judged before the throne of God, we are judged one by one. So the person has to first fix his relationship with themselves and with God. That is why the Lord has separated many people and has isolated them so that they can basically focus on just God and them. So if it was a partner that was standing on the way of the person growing in God, the Lord would temporarily remove the person so the spouse can commune better with God. But if it was not God's choice, then God would have removed the partner and prepared this person to meet God's choice. But in the meantime, this person would have a chance to commune and have a good relationship with God first. So the person must first have the relationship first with God. So as much as God created our own lives so that we can have a clear view of Him and grow in Him and be rooted in Him, so even the prodigals, it has been the same. God has had to remove some people and places out of them, or to remove them out of those places and out of those people so that they can grow in God. Okay? Yeah. And as far as some people being out of your life, it's not everybody that is permanently out of your life. There are people who are out of your life, but at God's set time, they will be reconciled back into your life. So don't be burning bridges with people. That's because God has separated you from people. Don't go around burning bridges. Don't be burning bridges. Don't be burning bridges. You're going to have to be building all those bridges again. There are people who belong in your life, but there has to be a temporary separation for you to grow and heal in God, for them to grow and heal in God. Okay? Not everything is like, it's as clear as black and white. Okay, left or right. Don't be burning bridges. There are people who are going to be reconciled back into your life. Okay, just because God cut some people off doesn't mean that that's it, you're done forever. No, it's not like that. Okay. Yeah, I should actually make a teaching on that one. Yeah. And then the woman was shocked. The woman jumped up in shock. She couldn't believe, like, where do you come from? Like, when did you get here? I didn't see you. I didn't hear. I didn't sense. I didn't feel Like, when did you get here? Like, that's just how it's going to be. When your spouse appears, it's going to be like that, boom, in front of you. Like that, boom, in front of you. Okay? So she was shocked to see him there, and she was shocked at the proximity. Like, she realized, like, oh my gosh, like, this person has been seated right here all this time. All this time. He could see her, but she couldn't see him. So that really shocked her. Okay? And I want to speak about the man when he was reaching out to her doing this. This shows that this man had insight, this man had discernment. He understood what a trying period it has been for the partner to have to wait, to have to be in the waiting for God to bring this process to an end. This person has had to wait on the sideline, waiting for this person to be dating, waiting for this person to be finishing whatever they were finishing. It is very trying. It is very trying. It can cause anybody to throw a tantrum. Like, Lord, you don't expect me to be sitting here waiting for someone who's still dating the world. Why don't we just both date? See, he dates and I date. And then when he's done, then, yeah, it's amazing the kind of thoughts and the kind of mental battles that one has to deal with in the journey, especially in the beginning. Especially in the beginning. Yeah. I would say in the beginning and towards the end. Yeah. So your waiting is definitely not it was definitely not a waste. And the another thing, the child also comforting the woman, it reminds us that the Holy Spirit is our comforter. Through this journey we may feel we are alone, but no, the Lord is there. We've got Kingdom Marriage videos to encourage you. You have music that the Lord has been using to speak to you. I also have a few lyrical messages, but I would not be attaching them to this video. I don't want it to be long. It's already longer than I want it to be, okay? But I want to say everything that I need to say, because someone needs to walk out of here healed, walk out of here with a clear, pure heart, okay? With a smile, yeah, with a glow, like a bride should have, like a groom should have, okay? And you're glowing. You are glowing, whether you see it or not. You are glowing. You are glowing. Okay. The reason you're receiving attention now is because the enemy wants to see if he can trip you. The last people coming to, the last people who are just popping up is just a distraction. Keep your focus. Keep your focus. Just keep your focus. Okay. Yeah, and don't be expecting the enemy to be trying you with the enemy is going to try you with people who are your type. Okay, so but if you've been in the journey long enough, it's not hard to be able to keep your focus. Okay. Yeah, I've already mentioned him patting was revealing that this man has insight and discernment, understands that the journey has been hard for the woman. It's been frustrating, the stress. But the woman stood because she was honoring God and wanted to stay in God's will. So she chose God first. You better choose God first. She loved God first. You better love God first. Otherwise, you won't be able to hold on to the partner, because a person will try you. Okay. And if you have been married before, you will know that at times you don't like your spouse. So you better love Jesus. Child, you better love Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, I said not like when you don't like. I didn't say hate. Okay. Love will always be there. Love will always be there. So he understood what she went through. And her choosing God helped her not to walk away, helped her to keep on the stand. Even though the partner was rejecting her, even though the partner was acting strange. Guys, like I said, like, switch this around to suit you. She had to love God more than the man. Okay? Yeah, so that's basically the dream that I wanted to share. It's amazing. The first few times when I recorded it, it was like around 18-20 minutes. And when I finally have my thoughts together and I have my notes, now it's actually over 30 minutes. So I don't want to ruin this one. So yeah, there is a lyrical to this, but I will make it in another video or in the coming videos. And probably maybe try to make them a standalone video, so it's not necessarily attached to this one. So I hope that this was a blessing to someone. If you've made it this far, bravo, bravo, hat off to you, bravo. This was a difficult journey. Let me be the first to congratulate you, my lady. Let me be the first one to congratulate you, sir. You know, you good and faithful servant. The journey was not easy, but you made it through. Well done. You will be rewarded for the time you were frustrated, for the time you cried. You will be well rewarded and you'll be well compensated, not just by your partner, but by God Himself. Any other questions as to the how, where the person lives over there, the job, the this, the that, leave all of that for God. I think by this time you have helped God so many times that it pleases you to sit back and recline like that lady and just be nonchalant. To just have that faith in God that I'm going to relax, I'm going to sit here and take a nap if I need a nap. I don't need to be out here, watching 24 hours. I've got God who neither sleeps nor slumbers. I'm going to relax. I'm not going to sit out trying to figure out things now, like a child, or with the faith like a child. We leave everything unto God. I hope that this was a blessing, you guys. I must see you again in the coming days with the lyrical messages to this word. So thank you, guys. God bless.